Welcome, everyone, to the NewVision, OldWays podcast, a greatly ambitious journey of discovery where we can all learn to live better, mentally healthier, and more fulfilling lives. If you're just discovering us, feel free to go back and take the journey from the beginning. And if you're already a NewVision, OldWays fan, welcome back and enjoy Season 4. And now, here is your host, Tony Marinaccio.
You are listening to NewVision, OldWays, the podcast that explores timeless wisdom for the modern mind in a fun, relaxed, and most important, interactive way with you, the listener. I am your host, Tony Marinaccio, and let's get the episode started. Welcome, everyone, to Season 4 and another great episode of the NewVision, OldWays podcast. And as always, I am your host, Tony Marinaccio, and I cannot say it enough. I appreciate all of you who listen to the show. It is an absolute honor to have you on board, and I believe that Season 4 will be the start of something special. And we are going to begin the season with a fantastic series on creative thinking. I want to approach this subject from what I think are a few unique perspectives, incorporating areas that I have already discussed, but showing how important they are to creative thinking, like critical thinking, cognitive reappraisal, risk-taking, and I'll also take a look at people that went from what looked like impossible odds to changing the world and becoming legends because they were able to think outside the box under very difficult circumstances, and they will be a lesson for all of us to learn in each of those circumstances. Being creative isn't just for the artists. It's for everyone, and creative thinking can benefit us in most every situation we encounter. Opening our minds and releasing our creativeness is essential to living a fulfilling life. And best of all, it can change our lives because no circumstance will be looked at as impossible. It will now be looked at as an opportunity to put our creative minds to work and solve problems, create ideas and art, to succeed in business, while others, unfortunately, are not able to see outside the small box that they live in. My goal is to look outside the box as much as possible, because once you are comfortable with the concept of expanding your options and accepting risk as a component of all great ideas, then being creative will come naturally and ideas will flow instead of always looking for someone else's opinion or ideas. Allowing your creativity to flow will enhance everything you do and give you the confidence to put yourself out there more than you ever have before. So, without further ado, let's start to use all that creative energy that we have, and let's create the life we desire. And let's also start Season 4 with NewVision, OldWays podcast, episode 32, Creative Thinking. It's critical and deserves reappraisal.
First of all, you don't really know what someone else thinks. And if you're not genuine to yourself, there's like nothing is there. It's just a projection or a mask. It's not true. In a sea of information, the more yours is personal, the more it's not like hers or his or theirs. It's yours.
Yeah.
There are these different points of view around us. If we're all thinking the same thing, it's boring. Why would we make anything if everyone thinks the same thing? What makes us interesting are the differences. And even the imperfections. The imperfections are what makes us humans, what makes us what we are. As we get new information, we have to evolve. How can we live in an old belief? If you believe the same thing that you believed 20 years ago about everything, I don't know that you're living. There's so much middle of the road.
That was Rick Rubin, a renowned record producer, and so much more. I played that clip for an important reason. Most of us worry so much about what others think that we allow that worry to almost eliminate our ability to be creative. To make matters worse, we also could tend to be closed-minded to the world around us and not allow creative thoughts to flow through us. The idea that I have to think like you because it makes you feel better is simply ridiculous. Part of the reason so many people have issues that they have is because they want to replicate how others are living. And when you do that, you become merely a clone, living for others when you could be living for yourself. Creativeness is a key to being who you really are, not just by wearing crazy clothes or by piercing every part of your body. Yes, that's being creative, but it's also about how you handle seemingly mundane everyday tasks. Being creative is not just for the sake of art. It's a valuable tool that we can use all day, every day. So let's be clear and get an understanding of what creative thinking really is. Creative thinking is about breaking away from conventional ideas, generating novel solutions, and thinking outside the box. It's less about rules and more about exploration. It's often seen as spontaneous, intuitive, and imaginative. Creative thinking allows you to see connections that others may miss, find unexpected answers, and push the boundaries of what's possible. Think of an artist or a writer brainstorming ideas, or an entrepreneur developing an innovative product, or a parent just trying to find a solution to a problem with their child. Or even think of times you simply had to get what felt like a million things done in one day, and you figured it out and got them done. Creative thinking is fueled by curiosity and the willingness to explore new possibilities without being restricted by logic or norms, or even by what others may think, especially by what others may think. So, Rick Rubin's point has been made by this podcast numerous times. True success with anything comes from being true to your inner self and a work ethic that is second to none. So why then do people suffer from feeling like they cannot be creative? I hear it all the time. Sayings like, well, life happens, and I get caught up in running the kids all around, working, mowing the lawn, cooking dinner, just no time to be creative. Maybe when things calm down, I'll start thinking that way. But as we all know, things don't generally calm down. In many instances, they just keep ramping up and our creative side gets pushed down and we end up doing everything the same as we did yesterday, and we wonder why things don't get any better. If we are being true to ourselves and admitted it, we would realize that our true self has been hidden away for far too long, and we never gave our creative side a chance. Plus, we are too worried what everyone thinks anyway, so why even bother? Of course, you may not feel exactly how I just described, but let's face reality. Life does happen. But those of us that can still find those moments to get in touch with our inner self and allow creative thoughts to emerge, see that problem solving becomes easier. Creating something artful becomes a reality. At our jobs, whether we work for a company or we work for ourselves, we are able to solve issues as they arise with thoughtful and creative solutions. I know for myself that there were many years where I could barely consider being creative because of my family life, working way too much and somehow trying to jam some fun in there as well. When the creative force we have gets squashed, we begin to lose who we really are. We become robotic, dull, and we struggle to solve problems because if the answer is not online or in a book, or we immediately have to reach out to others for help, when maybe if we had our creative juices flowing, we would have probably come up with the solution ourselves and saved ourselves a lot of time, grief, anxiety, and stress. Being creative, being truly creative, has a lot more to it than what we realize. There are related skills that if we honed those skills, our creativity would explode out of us. I want to focus on the ones that are the most important. I want to start with one that I spoke about at length in episode 17, and that's the concept of critical thinking. At first glance, creative thinking and critical thinking might seem like polar opposites. While critical thinking is structured, logical, and deliberate, creative thinking is fluid, intuitive, and spontaneous. When we take a deeper look, we begin to see how they complement each other. In fact, critical thinking refines and evaluates ideas, while creative thinking generates and expands on them. It's a teamwork philosophy that, through training our mind, can result in you seeing things differently than you have ever done before. Creativity then will not just be a concept that you dabble in, it will be a part of your natural thought process.
What's the difference between creative thinking versus critical thinking? You can think of them as complementary skills which you use at different stages when trying to solve a problem or forming a judgment about something. Critical thinking is the ability to clearly and logically consider information that is presented to us. Creative thinking is about generating new, novel, and useful ideas. The great innovators combined critical thinking and creative thinking, old world perspectives with new world ideas.
That was creativity expert James Taylor, not the singer-songwriter by the same name, even though I am a James Taylor, the singer fan, but I love what the creative expert James Taylor said about how complementary these skills are and how it's akin to taking old world perspectives and adding new world ideas. Sounds like a podcast you might be familiar with, taking old world perspectives and adding new world ideas. Which podcast could that possibly be? Maybe it's this one, but I digress. As we are beginning to see, critical thinking and creative thinking are not mutually exclusive. They work best together. Critical thinking refines and evaluates ideas, while creative thinking generates and expands on them. Here's how. I mentioned brainstorming earlier in the podcast. You can come up with all sorts of ideas. Some of them might seem a bit out there or even impractical. But it's the critical thinking side of us that helps to step in and sift through them, identifying the most promising ones and figures out how to make them work. Critical thinking also helps challenge assumptions, which helps to make room for creativity. Creative breakthroughs often require challenging the status quo to discover new insights and perspectives. And that's where critical thinking comes in. By questioning those established assumptions and reframing problems, critical thinking often opens up a space for creative solutions to emerge. Keep reframing top of mind because that is a key here, and more to come on that in a few moments. Another aspect here is also very important. I spoke about risk at length in episode 23, and creativity requires taking risks. Critical thinking helps to ensure those risks are calculated. When faced with uncertainty, creative thinking may take you down an uncertain path. But critical thinking helps you assess whether that path is viable and ultimately worth taking. This by no means is a green light to overthink. That can obviously stifle creativity. But a critical view can help you make adjustments along the way instead of a pure throw caution to the wind attitude that can be mentally and financially disastrous.
It has a unique name, and it's called cognitive reappraisal. Okay, so basically it's a psychological strategy that involves altering the way you interpret or perceive stressful situations with the goal to changing your emotional response. Okay, the technique is really grounded in what we call CBT, or cognitive behavioral therapy. You may have heard of that before. And it basically states that we're going to change our thoughts, emotions, and our behaviors because they're all connected, right? So when we change our thoughts, everything else will follow. And when you have negative or maladaptive thoughts, we can really alter our emotional responses and behaviors in a more positive direction.
That was Dr. Lori Marbus, a board-certified family and lifestyle medicine physician. And a particular point she made there was very important. She said, when we change our thoughts, everything else will follow. Here is where I want to throw in the wild card perspective on this, the secret sauce, if you will. And that's the idea of cognitive reappraisal, or the idea of reframing. The simple definition is it's the process of reinterpreting a situation to change its emotional impact, as Dr. Marbus just mentioned. When we face a challenge or something goes wrong, our initial reaction is often emotional. For example, if you are working on a project and it doesn't go as planned, your first instinct might be frustration or anxiety. This emotional response can block creativity, making it harder to come up with new ideas or solutions. Cognitive reappraisal is the tool that allows you to step back and reframe that initial response in a way that fosters creativity. Here's a real-life example. Let's say you are a graphic designer and you've spent hours on a design, but your client or boss rejects it. Initially, you might feel disappointed or even defeated. Cognitive reappraisal allows you to ask yourself, how can I view this differently? What can I learn from this rejection? By shifting your mindset, you might realize that the feedback gives you an opportunity to improve and refine the project, possibly even further developing your skills, rather than seeing the rejection as a failure. The idea here is that our perception shapes our response. If you can reframe your thoughts, you can shift your emotional state. The amazing thing with cognitive reappraisal is that it helps you detach emotionally and approach the situation with a clear mind, ready to engage your creativity in a new direction. Reframing challenges as opportunities isn't just a mindset. It's a proven strategy that successful creators and thinkers use daily. Here is one more example to bring this home a bit more. Think about a writer who's working on a novel and is facing writer's block. I know I can certainly relate to that. Instead of stressing out or panicking about the lack of progress, cognitive reappraisal would encourage the writer to view the block as a natural part of the process, a signal that their brain might need a break, or that they're just in the middle of figuring out the next big idea. This shift in thinking keeps the writer moving forward without letting frustration take over. Thomas Edison had a great quote that fits right here, and he said, "Many of life's failures are people who did not realize how close they were to success when they gave up." Cognitive reappraisal is key to not giving up. Thomas Edison also said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." Now that's reframing a situation. So cognitive reappraisal can keep us going and is crucial to the mindset in life and creativity. And now I want to bring critical thinking back into the equation. With a new mindset, thanks to cognitive reappraisal, our minds can enhance our creative process by taking our creative thinking skills to a higher level. Remember, critical thinking is all about analyzing, evaluating, and synthesizing information in a thoughtful and structured way. In other words, it's the process of breaking down complex ideas and problems to understand them more clearly and come up with a better solution. Critical thinking is essential for creativity because it helps you separate ideas that might seem good in the moment from those that are actually worth pursuing. It encourages you to ask deeper questions, challenge assumptions, and avoid falling into the trap of jumping to conclusions. Let's, for practical purposes, say that you are trying to come up with a concept for a new painting. Critical thinking asks, what message do I want to convey? What materials will best express this message? How do the colors and the textures work together? By asking these questions and evaluating your ideas step by step, you can take the randomness of creativity and turn it into focused, cohesive visions. Again, overthinking can take the edge away from creativity, so you have to manage your critical thinking effectively. Yes, that takes effort and practice, but anything worth doing is worth doing well, and practice has to be a part of it. And you may find yourself overthinking at first, and that's okay. Practice makes perfect, and your mind will take time to get used to being thoughtfully controlled by you. Remember, your mind can tend to take control over you if you let it. So be diligent and purposeful in your thinking and show your mind who really is the boss here. The writer, Christine Evangelou, has a great quote. She said, "A crowded mind leaves no space for a peaceful heart." I feel like we can add to that by saying that a crowded mind leaves no space for creativity. I personally find that many self-help books, financial advice books, etc., many times don't take our everyday busy lives into account. We are all unique people. We all have a lot going on, whatever that may be. But in this day and age, it's so important to make those adjustments to our lives and make sure that we are concentrating on our mental health and, of course, our physical health that can improve or suffer because of our mental health. Point is, being creative for most people who are not Paul McCartney or the like can run into roadblocks around every turn. As I said before, life does happen, but we are all worth the effort to find those moments where we can just breathe, meditate, clear our minds, get off our devices, be alone, and as I've said many times, get in touch with our inner selves. I bring this up now because using the skills of creative thinking, critical thinking, and cognitive reappraisal will be effective only if we are able to use them with an open mind and a healthy mind. I'll use me as an example again. There have been a number of times that my life took a complete left turn when I so wanted to go right, and it caused me to, fairly easily at times, fall into the "oh, woe is me" routine that many of us fall into. I have buried myself in doubt, depression, and anxiety over things I had very little control over. For me, it was paralyzing at times. and it made everything seem dark. So I get it. It's easy to not be able to think past those moments when you're right in the thick of it. I'm guessing we have all had those moments at some point, right? Some more serious than others, but those dark, paralyzing moments are the moments that, for myself, if I had used the concepts of creative thinking, critical thinking, and cognitive reappraisal, I would have made it through those moments with a lot less stress and anxiety, and getting to the other side of those times would have been a much quicker journey. My point here is being creative is not just about writing a song, painting a picture, or designing a home or building. It's about being creative with how you are going to get through the day when things are rough. Being able to critically think your way through so you have the focus to use those creative skills, and when the dark moments hit, reframe them into opportunities that will propel you to the next adventure in your life. It's so easy to give into the darkness. And yes, it takes effort to avoid that, but you can do it. There are always positive decisions that can be made instead of reacting with emotion. We see it every day on the news, how someone lost control of their emotions and killed a loved one, or even worse, loved ones. Cognitive reappraisal may seem like a third wheel on this part of the journey, but it's so important, and it keeps us grounded and focused. And it does something that I also feel is important, and that is it helps us deal with the risk of being a creative thinker. Yes, folks, there are risks when you put yourself out there, and that is where we will begin with the second episode of this series, and there will be much more to expand on. So, what did you think about this episode so far, or any of the episodes? I would love to find out. And here is where to get a hold of the show and let us know. These are in the show notes, but as always, here they are. There's a new link that you could click on that will allow you to donate to the show and show your support. By donating what you can, it will allow me to book guests and cover costs. Anything will help. Cancel at any time. You can also message the show from each episode on your various platforms. Just look for the send us a text message link. If that doesn't work for you, you can email us at newvisionoldways@gmail.com. Again, newvisionoldways@gmail.com. You can find us on what was Twitter, now X, at NewVision Old Way. Remember, there's no S on that, at NewVision Old Way. Check out the NewVision Old Ways YouTube channel. Type in NewVision, one word, Old Ways, one word, and please subscribe. It is free and will show support for the show. It really means a lot and will help grow the show on YouTube. You can find us on Facebook by doing the same thing. NewVision, one word, Old Ways, one word, podcast, and you should easily find us. And as a reminder, these are all growing platforms for us and expanding all the time. So we need your help to get the flow going with the community. And last but not least, if you could do me a huge favor and subscribe to us, like us, follow us, leave a review on whatever platform you found us on, that would be so appreciated. That will also help, again, secure guests that we will be booking in the future. So welcome to season 4. And I have a lot to cover this season. So thank you for listening. And I can't wait to get your input. And I also can't wait until we get together for the next episode of New Vision, Old Ways. Until then, stay true to yourself, stay informed, and stay empowered.
But the most important thing is,
this episode and all the episodes of the New Vision, Old Ways podcast have been written, engineered, and produced by Tony Marinaccio and TKM Productions.